In George Lucas's Star Wars films, we are given a modern myth of the Machine Age, wherein echoes are sounded from throughout all the long history of man's mythological past, and in particular those involving the great Dragon Slayer myths. Luke Skywalker, for example, is equivalent to Siegfried, the hero of Wagner's Ring Cycle, who was himself a fearless dragon slayer. The following scene, where Skywalker's teacher Ben Kenobi gives to Skywalker his father's lightsaber, evokes the opening scene of Wagner's opera Siegfried, where the young hero is given the broken pieces of his father's sword by the dwarf who has raised him from infancy. And just as Siegfried was given the task of slaying the dragon Fafnir and rescuing Brunhilde from her prison, so too Skywalker is given the task of destroying the great metaphor of the state itself, the Death Star, and in the process rescues the stolen princess. Star Wars is nothing if not a neo-medieval myth for the electronic age. The concept of the Jedi Knights is reminiscent of the Japanese cult of the samurai warriors, and indeed Lucas was influenced especially by the samurai films of Akira Kurosawa. Trained not only in the rigors of expert fighting, the minds of the samurai have been shaped by the discipline of Zen Buddhism, which cultivates an attitude of detachment on the part of the warrior initiate. Eugene Herrigel's book Zen and the Art of Archery, for example, details the initiation of a Westerner into the Zen discipline, wherein the practice of some physical discipline, archery in this case, can only be fully achieved when the act of control and interference of the mind has been purged until complete spontaneity results. A perfect fusion of mind with action. In the current electronic age, Zen Buddhism is becoming more and more popular, and in Star Wars it serves us with the model for the basis of a harmonious relationship of human beings to their machines. In order to use the machine properly, the soul must first be made strong enough to stand up to it, and is through the cultivation of one or another spiritual practice or tradition that strengthens the human being so that he cannot be intimidated by technology. The confrontation between Ben Kenobi and Darth Vader in the following scene symbolizes the film's central conflicting powers represented by the Empire on the one hand and the Jedi Knights on the other. Translated into modern terms, this is indicative of the conflict between the machine of the state and the interests of an individual life lived out of the spontaneous center of one's own proper motivations, rather than those imposed by machines. The state itself is a machine and exists to serve the individual, not vice versa. In order for the individual to act with spontaneity, however, he must first descend into the uncertain darkness of the psyche, where he will encounter a strange and difficult world of tests and conflicts which must be surpassed if the individual is to become an effective presence in the world. As Carl Jung has shown us, the first layer of the psyche which must be integrated is the world of one's own personal shadow, that is, the repressed conflicts and traumas of one's own individual past. Here, one of Skywalker's tests is shown to be the necessity for recognizing Darth Vader as one aspect of himself, thereby precipitating the necessary compassion which will later resolve the conflict. The alchemical breakdown and transformation of Skywalker's psyche takes place through a series of ordeals imposed upon him by the mental and physical disciplines of Yoda, the ageless Jedi Master who is an incarnation of the timeless wisdom, what Jung called the 2 million-year-old man that is innate within every one of us. But Skywalker's failure to understand the message of his dreamlike encounter with Darth Vader in the underworld of his own psyche leaves him psychologically unbalanced, unprepared to meet the conflict with his father. He is thrown off-center by his aggression and desire to play the heroic role too soon. Consequently, he loses his right hand, just as Jonah lost one of his legs while caught in the belly of the whale, or as Horus lost one of his eyes in the conflict with his brother Set in Egyptian mythology. And as Wotan in Scandinavian mythology had to sacrifice his eye for eternal wisdom, so must the individual who wishes to integrate the powers of the abyss lose part of himself to it. Indeed, this very sacrifice is a part of the initiation process itself. In Return of the Jedi, Skywalker returns from the descent into the darkness of his own unconscious, where its tests have been successfully passed. He is a master of himself, in full possession of the hard-won faculty of self-control. Thus centered, his mind has power over those who have not undergone the trials of the underworld, and he is able to walk easily past them. Here we see Skywalker in the role of the archetypal dragon slayer, like his counterpart Siegfried in Wagner's Ring Cycle. The archetypal monster slayer, like Krishna or Heracles, is one who has mastered in himself the aggressive and selfish bestial instincts which they personify. In Manichaean mythology, a warrior known as the Anthropos is suited up in an armor of light, and sent by the gods down into the material world to do battle with the demons of darkness. But he fails in this task, for the demons tear off his armor of light and eat it, thus entrapping light within matter. The Holy Spirit must be sent down into nature in order to reach his hand out and pull up the fallen Anthropos from his capture by matter. These two roles are replicated precisely by Darth Vader, who is the boy who has fallen into the prison of technology, and his son Luke Skywalker, whose very name Luke comes from the Greek lukos, meaning light, who must descend down into the darkness of the great machine in order to rescue him and restore his father to his originally pure condition of light and luminosity. Skywalker is only able to succeed in this task by mastering his own passions in good Neoplatonic fashion, something which his father Anakin had failed to do, for Anakin had allowed himself to be swept away by the passion of his desire for the beautiful young princess and his anger at those who tried to prevent him from achieving his goals. In Star Wars, we are thus shown how the individual can shape and transform his life experiences through his own inner self-mastery. In so doing, the external world of society, machines, and conflicting interests do not rob him of the capacity for self-making and creativity. His will is free, and he is no victim of the cosmos. To such an individual, it is impossible for the mega-machine to dictate to him in its own shaping interests, for he has already shaped himself.